by sitting in Rhino's locker room. I was like, I really like this guy. And it just kind of came into fruition after that. And we just kind of built this connection. And I mean, hell, man, we got to play the piano. Well, you got to play the piano. And we built a really, really, really crappy match around a body slam story.
Oh, man.
Wrestling is life. Wrestling is life. Wrestling is life. Is wrestling.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Wrestling is Life is Wrestling with Cody Deaner. I am Cody Deaner, and I'm a professional wrestler. I'm a professional wrestling producer with TNA Wrestling. I'm a professional speaker traveling all across North America, going into schools and youth events and doing motivational speeches. I'm also a father to 4 wonderful children and a husband to a beautiful wife. And I'm a podcaster. This is my podcast. Welcome back if you are a returning guest to this podcast. And welcome for the first time. If this is your first time listening to this, thank you for joining us here on this wonderful episode. I'm super excited about this conversation that you're going to listen to today. And I'm also excited about the time of season as a father and a husband. This is an exciting time. Christmas. I love Christmas. And there's a number of years in my life when Christmas wasn't super exciting. And now that I'm a father, I get to live vicariously through my kids and just get super excited about the whole season. I love it. I love this season and I'm having a blast. But even though it's Christmas, it's the break. My kids are off school. It's break. It's like this time where everybody kind of shuts down, just spends time with family. Well, for me, I don't rest. I don't get a break because I only rest when dead. That was a sweet little segue plug into my sponsor, Rest When Dead Clothing. You can go to restwhendead.ca, check out their collection. And hey, it's Boxing Week. Here in Canada, it's Boxing Week. I say this to Americans, they have no idea what I'm talking about. But like Boxing Week and like Boxing Day is like a really special time where there's all these like post-Christmas deals. Why don't you head on over to restwhendead.ca for Boxing Week and get yourself a t-shirt, or check them out on Instagram at restwhendead clothing. You can also get a Cody Deaner signature shirt, signature hat, as well as Crazy Steve and Jody Threat. They got a signature series as well. Check them out, like I said, on restwhendead.ca. But I don't rest. I don't stop. I'm bringing you this content. Even though it's the Christmas break, I'm bringing this content to you free each and every week on all major podcast platforms, easy for me to say, and on video. You can go check it out right now. I'm trying to up my YouTube game. So if you head on over to Cody Deaner Podcast on YouTube, you can check out each and every episode in video format, as well as some clips from each episode, some shorts from different episodes. Head on over to Cody Deaner Podcast. Hit that subscribe button. What do the kids say? Smash that button. Smash that subscribe button. I don't know. I've heard that before. I guess that's what kids say. Why don't you go on and do that at Cody Deaner Podcast on YouTube? That's one way you can support me. Another way you can support me is go to prowrestlingtees.com/Cody Deaner. Get yourself a t-shirt. Why don't you go to cameo.com/Cody Deaner? Get yourself a personalized video, or better yet, support this podcast and get some really wicked, awesome content by going to patreon.com/Cody Deaner, and you get each and every episode early and ad-free, the full conversation. So not part 1 and part 2 cut up like they are here in the free versions, but you get the full conversation. So you get part 2 of an entire week early, and I put up the part 1s a couple days early, and you get them all put together early, no commercials, no editing done to them. It's just the entire raw conversation in audio and video format. If you go to patreon.com/Cody Deaner, become a patron, you can get that right now. And I just opened a Patreon store. So if you go and you look at my catalog and you go, I don't know if I want exclusive access to all your guests, which I don't know why you'd say that, because every single one of my guests is so super wicked awesome. However, maybe you go and go, I just want one episode. I just want to listen to this. I've heard a lot about this Crazy Steve trilogy, this 3-parter with Steve. And I want to listen to the entire thing, and I want to support Cody in this venture, but I also want to support Steve and, learn about his story and share his story with the world. Well, then go on over to patreon.com/Cody Deaner, and you can just buy that episode right now. So each and every episode, I'm putting them up there in my store at patreon.com. So you don't have to be a monthly subscriber to do this. You can just buy individual episodes, individual content that you like. You can do that right now over at patreon.com/Cody Deaner. Let's stop the shilling for a minute and really put a heavy shill right now on today's guest. You might know him from all the amazing thing that he's done in his career. This guy has a career that's been over 2 decades. He's been in WWE Developmental, Deep South Wrestling. He's got experience in WWE Developmental, Florida Championship Wrestling. He's got experience in NXT. He also has experience with the WWE, traveling all around the world with the main roster. You might remember him from the Ascension, or you know him by being my stablemate in the design at Impact Wrestling. That's how you might know him. Well, I just know him as my friend. Of course, I'm talking about Kon. I met Kon a number of years ago. You're going to hear the really funny story of kind of how we met and how we became really fast friends. You're going to hear that story today in part 1. And one of the things that I very much enjoy about my friendship with Kon is he's that guy that I can travel the road with, and we just consume wrestling 24/7 as wrestlers. We think about it, it consumes us so much. But I'm a dad, and I'm a husband, and I have real life going on outside this business. And sometimes when I'm on the road, I don't want to talk about wrestling. I just want to talk about real life stuff. And I have a handful of people in my life that I do that with when I'm on the road, traveling and wrestling. And one of those guys that I do that with is my buddy Kon. We've had some really good life talks, bouncing ideas off each other as fellow fathers, and just how to live our lives, the best lives that we can live outside the wrestling business. That's the kind of stuff I talked to my buddy Kon about. And I thought, why don't I bring him on here? We'll have a conversation like that, and we'll let you guys listen in. So yes, this guy's done a lot, and we're going to talk about a lot of those things that he's accomplished. But like we always do, if this is your first time listening, we talk about the mindset surrounding those accomplishments. So all the successes and all the failures that Kon has experienced in his life, we're going to talk about how that affected him mentally and the life lessons that he's learned along the way in this crazy journey. And man, he's got some stories to tell. I'm not going to spoil it. I'm not going to even give you any teasers because you're going to listen to it right now. This is part 1 of our conversation. Next week is part 2. If you get to the end of today's conversation and you're like, man, Cody, why are you making me wait till next week to get to part 2? I'm not, because you can go right now to patreon.com/Cody Deaner and you can get the full conversation, part 1 and part 2, right now over at patreon.com/Cody Deaner. But if you don't want to do that, you just want to support by, hey, how about you rate and review this episode when you get to the end of it and you like it, because I know you're going to. Give me a 5-star review, maybe put a rating, maybe put a little review on whatever you're listening to this on, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, whatever it might be. This is available all around the world on all platforms. Why don't you just give me a review? It helps the algorithm, helps more people find this wonderful project that I'm working on and trying to bring the world and bring some positivity into the world through this thing that we all love in professional wrestling. How about we continue this experiment that I have where I'm trying to spread some positivity right now? Together, we can listen to part 1 with the very talented, the very cool, the calm, collected, the awesome, my friend, and soon to be yours, Kon. All right, brother. Here we are. Take 2. Take 2 on this deal. I'm here with a good brother of mine, Kon, and we've been two Neanderthals trying to figure out this technology. This is our second go at it. Hopefully, those that are watching this on YouTube appreciate how attractive both of us look right now. If you're watching this, and for the audio listeners, your eardrums will be tickled by the soothing voice of Cody Deaner and Kon. How's it going, brother?
Man, it's going good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I mean, it's a little bit. I got a little bit of downtime right now. Not as busy as I have been the last couple months. It's been wild and crazy, but I'm feeling good, and I'm feeling good because I have you on this. You're one of the guys that I've wanted to talk to since I started this project, and I was finally able to nail you down and make this happen. So I'm pumped.
Well, I don't know if you had to nail me down, but I'm excited to be a part of this. I remember when you were talking about it. I thought it was going to be, really cool, and it's definitely something that's kind of in your realm. I don't know if a lot of people know what you do, with going out there and doing your speaking engagements. This is just another branch of you being able to bring it to another portion of the community.
Yeah, so I've said this a couple times on the show. I don't know if I've been, I guess, maybe this specific about it, but I've been professionally speaking for almost a decade, and I go around to schools and I share my story with kids. And one thing that I've learned in sharing my story is that people learn something from my story. But every time I tell my story and talk about my journey in the business, I think I know what the student or the young person gets out of my story. And then when I talk to them, what they got out of it was not what I was expecting, which is really cool. So it's like every time I share, I'm like, oh man, they took something interesting out of that I wasn't expecting. So like every time I share my story, it's meaningful to different people in a different way. So when I started this project, I'm like, I'm going to talk to my friends and other successful people in the business and like learn their story. And then I know it's going to help somebody in some way. And it's going to hit everybody different. Right. So I've been talking to a variety of people and letting them kind of share their story, and me just being a genuinely curious person, learning their story and then asking some questions along the way, and trying to get into the head of my guests and like where they were at when certain things happen and what they've learned. And then, I don't know, just talking about life in this crazy business that we are both in. And you and I have both had a lot of really good private conversations, sitting down at a dinner, and very rarely actually talking about wrestling. We kind of talk about the business, whatever we're doing on screen together. And then the conversation goes immediately to like real life stuff. And having many of those conversations with you, I knew my brother Kon's going to be a hell of a guest to have on this show as part of this project.
Yeah. I mean, I'm excited to be able to talk with you. I always love talking with you, man. It's funny though. I find it interesting that you would think that a lot of wrestlers, when they get together, they just talk wrestling, which a majority of them do, right? They talk about old wrestling matches or moves or their matches in particular, but it was never about that with you and me. We always left business at the office, and we always talked about family or whatever it may be, whether it's personal problems or just things that we're happy about, and I think that's what made me, grow so fond of you, is because I don't open up to a lot of people, but the people that I do, I really, I cherish them. So it's it's kind of cool. I think, I don't get to talk like that with everybody.
Yeah, man, I'm the same way. I've learned, as you know, in this business, I guess you learn to be guarded with certain people. I know I am. I'm kind of careful with who I share certain information with. Right. I kind of learned that early in the business, kind of maybe being too open with some people too soon and going, oh, that was the wrong move, which I'm sure you've had these experiences too. But I was thinking of where I should start with you, and I like to. I decided I don't want to start from the beginning about where you were born and stuff. I do want to get into that because I feel that's interesting, but I want to start at the beginning of, for me, as you're talking about, finding a fellow brother to kind of trust.
Yeah.
I want to let the listeners know the moment I knew you were going to be my friend and you were going to be someone I could trust, and it was the first time we wrestled each other.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to share the whole story. I'd like to hear your version of it, and then I can kind of jump in. But I think we've talked about this many times, but I've never like heard your exact kind of version thoughts on it. So I'd like, as you being my guest, I want to give my guest the opportunity to kind of share kind of your thoughts on it, and then I'll jump in.
Yeah. Well, well, the first time I think I really, really started, really like paying attention to when you were in the locker rooms would have been at Rhino shows.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
And there was just something about you that that I was drawn to, and I watched your professionalism and everything in the back. And you're always about just taking care of people. Like you're always really good about that. And so I think, being two old war dogs in the business, you learn to really appreciate that in somebody because especially nowadays, you don't see that. So I found out that you were on a specific show, which I won't name. And I kind of felt that I'm trying to think of the nicest way to say this. I don't think you would have been protected. And I felt that it was my responsibility to go in there to protect you, knowing that what your career is and where you're at, and and making sure that you're okay to get on to the next venture. And I think we spoke about that.
We did.
And that was the whole mindset going in. There was just an immediate like about you by sitting in Rhino's locker room. I was like, I really like this guy. And it just kind of came into fruition after that. And we just kind of built this connection. And I mean, hell, man, we got to play the piano. Well, you got to play the piano. And we built a really, really, really crappy match around a body slam story.
Oh man. I don't. So here's the highlights for me. This is how I know I trusted my big brother Kon. Okay, so and you just nailed both of them. Piano playing and body slams, and the wrestling fans are listening to this right now and going, "What
it's not going to
work." So you nailed also the preface in the sense that like you were there to protect me. You knew that I had some tapings and other television stuff going on. So like, hey, you got it set up so that we could work each other and that we were going to have a nice, easy night, not take any unnecessary risks and put our bodies on the line unnecessarily, which can happen to some people. And like you said, we're both being war dogs. We want to avoid that. And we knew that we could take care of each other. So I appreciate that right away. And this is how I knew that I was going to like you, because you said, we'll have a nice, easy night and we'll just have a nice, simple match. No gaga, and we'll get, and we'll get
serious.
Yeah, no gaga, and we'll get through this. And I'll never forget looking at you and going, well, I appreciate that, but I think it might be impossible for me to not do any gaga. And you kind of had this smirk on your face and you said, well, what do you have in mind? And I explained to you how I wanted to try to body slam you for 15 minutes. And that was going to be the only thing that I really tried to do. And at some point, I noticed that this venue we were at, there was a piano in the corner. And I also said, I'm also going to play that during the match. And instead of you saying, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard, I'm not doing that, your smile got bigger and said, I think I paraphrase it was like, if you think you can make that work, I would love to see you try. And I said, hell yeah. So we did, and it worked, and it was freaking awesome.
Yeah.
And
Best part of the match.
yeah, man, I loved it. I was smiling on the inside and the outside the entire match. It was one of the easiest matches I've ever had, one of the most fun match I've ever had. And also kind of inside baseball here, when I've wrestled a lot of big men in the sport, a lot of big guys, and as a smaller guy myself, sometimes I'm a little bit apprehensive about working with big guys because some big guys don't know their own strength. I've been in there with a lot of crowbars. There's some more inside baseball for some wrestling fans, but basically you get in there, and what that means is you get in there with a guy who's, it's like trying to maneuver a crowbar or getting hit with a crowbar. You were the exact opposite. You were light as a feather. You couldn't have been more professional. You're laughing the entire time I'm doing my freaking gaga that we had decided not to do. And you were light as a feather. It was an easy night. And I immediately was like, all right, this guy's my friend now. And he's my brother for life. Those are my highlights of that. And I freaking loved it. So that's when I knew, okay, this is one good brother here in Kon.
Yeah, I remember specifically when you hit that body slam.
Hell yeah.
And everybody went crazy. And I was laying there and I go, am I allowed to say any bad words on this
Yes,
thing?
you can. Absolutely.
Okay. I go, holy shit, it worked.
And
we started laughing in the match.
Oh, I loved it.
I'll be damned.
Yeah, man.
That was awesome, man.
Yeah.
We both went on the next day. You know, you flew out, you had TV, you felt great. I went home. I felt great. You know, everybody made money and the place was happy and it was good business all around.
That's right. So that was my first memory of you. And then when your name came up, because a fellow friend of ours and Tommy Dreamer, who has a lot of pull at Impact Wrestling in terms of who's going to get hired and which talent are going to be brought in, and your name came up as somebody as we were going to move forward with Violent by Design and into the creative that we've done. Your name came across the table, and then I think my smile matched the big smile that was on your face when I body slammed you in our match, and I said, "Hell yeah, that is the guy. That is my number one choice as we move forward with this thing. That is the guy that I want 100% in Kon." So that's the inside scoop for all the wrestling fans wondering how and why Kon became associated with me in Impact Wrestling. It's because he let me body slam and play the piano in a wrestling match. So, oh, wrestling's the best.
Right? Like,
yeah.
You would sit back and you would think, you know, that there's more extravagant wrestling to this story, but it was really just feel good moments, man.
Yeah.
That was what it was. And that's how this whole thing just kind of grew into itself. So,
So
how did change it?
Yeah. How did you grow into being a wrestling fan? Like I made my research is wrong, but my research that I did on you that I spent painstakingly hours doing, which also means I spent 5 minutes on Wikipedia looking up some information on you. It says you're from Grand Rapids, Michigan. Is this true?
Well, yeah. So that's where I was born. I'm a northern boy. On paper, I was born in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Sparta, it's a little town in Grand Rapids to be exact. But I lived most of my life down in South Florida for the most part. It's been where my journey's always been with wrestling. But how it all started was my grandfather and me. We would sit there and he would have old black and white tapes. And we would watch them. When I was a kid, I would remember just sitting there and watching Baron von Raschke and Yukon Eric. He had just some names that you probably don't hear being thrown around too much, right? But that was kind of what I grew up, how I kind of stepped foot into it. And then as the years went on, you know, I have no recollection of this, but, you know, my stepfather, my dad, he took me to the Memphis Coliseum to see Jerry Lawler. At least that's what he tells me. I don't remember it. But the idea of that's pretty cool. Yeah. So and growing up, like it always brought my families together, wrestling specifically, because, back in our youthful days, we only had 4 pay-per-views, right? And, now you've got one every other week, it feels like. But back then, pay-per-views meant something. It was very important. And so we would have huge family get-togethers, and cousins, aunts, uncles, we'd always get together. And, that was how we bonded, especially because, a lot of those times it was during the holidays or right around. So, you know, it always left professional wrestling always left like that good feeling of my childhood memories.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
So what interests me, I love that. I didn't know that. That's really cool that it was something that brought families together. That's one thing that I don't think wrestling gets enough credit for.
Yeah.
And I get to see it firsthand, and so do you. I really see it on the indies when you get to go and you have a smaller, intimate crowd. I've seen countless times. I've seen a grandfather, a father, and a kid at a match.
Yeah.
And they come up to your merchandise table and you actually get to interact and talk to these people, and you're talking to like 3 generations of wrestling fans in front of you. And I don't think the average person even crosses their radar about really how special that is. To not only is that a connection, which it's maybe common in sports, you maybe got 3 generations of baseball fans, but those 3 generations of baseball fans don't necessarily get to go up to the baseball player and tell them how much they appreciate the entertainment that they've given them. Whereas for us as performers, we get to sometimes go to a merchandise table and have those families come up to us and actually talk to them about that. And it's pretty damn powerful.
It is. And I think, thinking along those terms, I think that has to do with age, getting older and being wiser. If we were to probably have the same conversation 15 years ago, I highly doubt we'd be thinking like that. We would probably be all about the hustle and bustle, making money, going to the next town. Whereas now, because of what we are as fathers, we know how to appreciate those moments. And I know that even in matches now, specifically for me, Cody, like if I'm working and I see that, whether it's a father or a family and children, like I always take that time to acknowledge that, even if it's, off camera, because it's something that I think you and I, we really appreciate that. And we can see that now for us specifically. Whereas, younger kids, I think they don't see that. They're just, all about the hustle and grind.
Yeah, man, for sure. I think you're right. I think if you asked me 15 years ago, I would look at that family and probably say, sweet, there's 3 people I can sell a t-shirt to.
Right.
And now I'm still happy to sell them a t-shirt, but if I don't care. It's more like, hey, I want to have a conversation with these people and share our mutual love of wrestling. I think, especially as you said, being dads, that's very, very important. Yeah. And being a dad of a wrestling fan, and my son who became a wrestling fan, and now we share that together. That's, man, it takes it to a whole other level of special.
Yeah, I agree. When I first brought my son around the business, I don't think he liked it. It was
same.
It was loud. He didn't like being around a bunch of people. The noises that, when you hit the mat, it's loud. The music, he just didn't want to be a part of it. But now being older, watching him, he wants to be around that more, which I think is really cool because I'm not forcing it on him. I'm not sitting there trying to be like, you're going to follow in daddy's footsteps or whatnot. He's just doing it on his, his own. It's completely organic.
All right, we're going to take a quick time out from this conversation so I can have another conversation with a very special person in my life. We haven't talked to her in a while, so I thought I'd bring her back on the show. Why don't you introduce yourself to my audience there, sweetheart?
My name is Hallie.
Your name is what?
Hallie?
Yes, okay, Hallie. Yeah, hold that microphone nice to your mouth there. And how old are you, Hallie?
7.
Ooh, you're 7. What are you wearing today? This looks really cozy. What do you have on?
Pajama pants.
Oh, pajama pants. Who's on your pajama pants?
Olaf.
Oh, man, they're so nice and cozy. And you got your cozy slippers on. We're having a nice cozy day, aren't we? Yeah, because it's December. It's cold outside in Canada where we are.
Mm-hmm.
But you've still been outside even though it's cold.
Yeah.
What have you been doing outside?
Playing. Well, we were passing a baseball.
Okay, passing a baseball. What else? What did we do last night? Me, you, Eden.
River and Ava.
Oh, yes.
Well, not really fully Eden. Like she went inside.
Yeah.
But
Eden went inside, and then what did we do? What did we play?
We played football.
Yeah, we played football. Did everybody get a touchdown?
Yeah.
I think everybody ended up getting a touchdown.
I got 2.
You got 2 touchdowns?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And then what did we do after we got a touchdown?
We went in the hot tub.
Oh, yeah, we went in the hot tub. Man, and that was just, what a night that was. That's we're very lucky that we can play together outside, go in a hot tub, help our muscles. It's actually what I wanted to talk about today was our muscles and doing exercises, because I have a company that's a sponsor on our podcast, and they're called CEO Fit.
CEO Fit.
Yes, and their website is ceofit.ca. You say that for me.
What did you say?
I said ceofit.ca.
CEOFit.ca.
Do you know why it's .ca?
No.
Well, in Canada, a lot of our websites have a .ca at the end.
Mm-hmm.
So you can have a .com, which is kind of all around the world, but in Canada you can have a .ca. So that's right. And CEO Fit is a Canadian company, an awesome Canadian company. And you know what they send people if they buy? They send them supplements that can help them grow their muscles big, stay strong, help them give them energy for their workouts. But not just that. This is the cool thing about CEO Fit. They also have like special syrups and seasonings that are really healthy for you that you can put on your food, especially with Christmas coming. If you want to make your healthy food taste just a little bit better, they have that on their website, ceofit.ca. And they have something called nootropics. Do you know what that is?
No.
It's not something that just makes your muscles strong. It makes your
brain
strong too. So for brain function, they got a lot of stuff for that too. Do you need that for your brain?
I don't know.
I don't think you do. You know why?
Why?
You're so smart. You're like one of the smartest girls I've ever met. And your teacher says it too, because I recently read your report card and you did really good, didn't you? Mm-hmm. And you got a reward recently. You went up in front of the whole school and you got a reward in your class. We should tell our listeners about that. What was that reward for?
Personal Achievement Award?
Personal Achievement Award with your name, Hallie, right on it. What was that for? Why'd they give that to you?
For being... Why are you making that face?
Why am I making that face? Because I'm waiting to hear what you're going to say.
I don't know. I don't know what it means, though.
Oh, you don't know what a personal achievement means? Well, it actually said it right on your thing. I'm trying to remember. I wish we had it in front of us. It says, I think your personal achievement award was for loving learning and always having a positive attitude towards learning. That's what it was for.
Mindset.
Oh, yes, positive mindset towards learning. That's right, because your school was all about having a positive mindset, weren't they? Mm-hmm. Well, the nootropics, the brain function supplements can help you have a positive mindset. You know what else helps you have a positive mindset?
What?
Exercise. Yeah, so the people at CEO Fit, they want to help you with your exercises. You can get supplements. Now, here's the cool thing. Remember we were talking about it's .ca and it's in Canada?
Yeah.
If you order over $120 worth of supplements, do you know what the company will do?
No.
They'll send it to you for free. Free shipping. It's free shipping. You don't have to pay any of the shipping because it costs stuff to ship it through the mail. But if you spend over $120, which is easy to do because they have so many amazing things on their website, free shipping. Won't even charge you for that.
Cool.
It is cool. So where should people go if they want to get some supplements, some seasonings, and things to help their brain and make them smarter and have a positive mindset? Where should they go?
CEO supplement.
Oh, you're so smart. That is what we're talking about, supplements, but that's not the website. It's, I'll give you a hint, CEO Fit. Say that.
CEO Fit.
And is it .com? No, what is it? .ca. That's right. So everybody go to where? Let's say it together.
ceofit.ca.
Thank you for coming back on here and talking to my listeners, Hallie, and being so wonderful and smart and telling about your personal achievement. Can you say bye to my listeners?
Bye.
What's he drawn to? I know my son, he started to get drawn to the entrances and the music and and then the backstory. When I told him, he the first thing was action figures, and he's like,
Yes.
wait a minute, who are these guys? And I told him the backstory, and I just saw his eyes just got big. He's like, wait a minute, each of these guys has a reason they're doing what they're doing. And I told him, I think I had one of my younger brother, I had some of his old action figures, and there was like Kane and the Undertaker, and I told him about how Kane and Undertaker were brothers, and it just blew his 5-year-old mind at the time. And he's like, okay, I want to know everything about all these guys now. And then that hooked him. Do you know what it hooked your son?
Well, yeah. So I'm going to give a cheap little plug here because they were actually the ones that did it. It was Collar and Elbow. They came over my house one day, and they said, you should let your son play with your action figure. And I was like, that's kind of weird, man. Like, I've never even pulled him out of the box. I was like, that's just weird.
Yeah.
And so they were like, no, you should give it a shot. And so they ended up kind of putting that thought process into my head. And, I pulled out the pack of me and my old tag partner, and, that's what kind of grabbed him. And he was kind of hooked at that point. And honestly, he didn't really care about playing with my figure more than he liked playing with my old tag partner's figure. So, so I actually told him about that when it happened. I was like, dude, my son likes playing with your action figure more than mine. But yeah, and now, he's 6. He's drawn to very colorful personalities. He loves John Cena. And it's got a lot to do with the colors and, the color schemes. And so that's what is pulling him in, is the fact that if it's a very colorful personality or a person with colorful gear, he's drawn to that specifically.
Yeah, I use my son as a soundboard for advice on what I should do, and other non-wrestling fans because of that reason.
Yeah.
To know, because it reminds me of what made me like somebody. So Hulk Hogan, the most over wrestler of all time, was my favorite for the same reason your son was drawn to John Cena and the colors he's wearing, and the bright shirts. I loved yellow and red, and I'm like, okay, that's my guy. And it was just those primary colors just boom blasted me. And then also his charisma, obviously, and all. It was more than that, but that was one of the things, was just the color.
Right.
So always keeping that in mind for my own business decisions. And it's like, okay, color is important, and all of these things that we just kind of, maybe we don't think about once we get into the bubble. I try to not only exist in that bubble. I actually like to talk to people outside that bubble to be like, what did you like about this moment? Or what did you like about, or what do you think about that person, what they're wearing or how they're talking? And those are the people that I like to talk to actually help guide what I want to do, because I think we often kind of get in the bubble. So talking to someone like your son, I think there's a lot to be learned from just talking to a little kid and what they're drawn to in wrestling.
Right. And, you think about it, and a lot of it's just it's marketing perspective, right? They sit there and they see those fancy colors and everything. And it's Okay, well, if I was to look at a couple action figures and there's an action figure with just straight black on, a kid's probably generally not going to grab that to buy or purchase it or to give it to their parents. It's going to be the figure that's a little bit more colorful,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just something that captivates children. Like for you, it was Hulk Hogan, right? For me, what really grabbed my attention was the Ultimate Warrior, right? Because he was just all over the place.
Yes.
And that was something that like really pulled me in to that whole aspect of professional wrestling. And I was never, this is funny too, because I was never really like I don't want to say wrestling fan. I wasn't more involved. Like I didn't care about the wrestling ability. I was more drawn to the characters and the personalities. Like my favorite wrestler was George the Animal Steel.
Yeah.
There is nothing technical about that guy.
Mm-mm.
I mean, he might, you know what I mean? Like there was absolutely nothing technical about him, but he was so entertaining and he just pulled you in.
Mm-hmm.
Terry Bam Bam Gordy, like just these guys are just bigger than life people that just pulled you in somehow. But I would say he was probably a technical wrestler though, but I just like the guys, that.
Yeah, brother. The characters, you're right. Like I think we often lose sight of that. Again, being in the bubble, I think sometimes we can lose sight of what is, I guess, what we think is important or what's going to quote unquote get over. But yeah, man, I have vivid memories. I can still remember it, seeing, George the Animal Steel and his green tongue and ripping off that turnbuckle.
Right.
And the impression that left on me as a kid. He was like a go-to. I had his LJN. I still have it. It's out in my garage in a tub. I have all of them. I still got my George Animal Steel figure, and he was solidly in my rotation of my tournaments I was putting on.
That's awesome
for that very reason. What made you then, as you're a young kid and you're watching these large in life characters? One thing I'm most curious about is, for guys like you and me, we all have our friends that we watch wrestling with when we're kids, but there's something in us that makes us go, I'm actually going to do this thing. And that's very rare because there's a lot of wrestling fans, but there's not the fraction of wrestling fans that become wrestlers is very, very slim. So there's something about us that made us go, I'm actually going to do that thing. What was that for you to make you even think, I'm going to try this crazy thing that I loved as a kid?
Okay. Well, okay. I'm about to blow your mind. So I never grew up saying I wanted to be a professional wrestler. Okay. I always enjoyed it. And I always loved it because of what it gave me and how it made me feel. But I never said I want to be a professional wrestler. The moment that all changed, though, was a day when I was doing landscaping work in a gentleman's backyard. And this would have been right around the 1999-2000 era when the XFL was running around and it was just about to take off. And I wanted to learn how to get into that because, I was very, very avid in becoming a professional football player. And I was like, okay, well, I didn't make the greatest grades and I didn't really want to go to a D1 school. And so I was like, you know what, this XFL thing sounds kind of cool. I want to try to maybe see how I can get into that. So a buddy of mine, Don Hernandez, I remember to this day, he said, hey, I think I might know somebody who can help you. I've got to go do some landscaping around his house. Is that fireworks in the background?
Yeah, it is. What the hell just happened? Your story is so over. You got your own pyro.
Are you pushing buttons on me?
No, dude, I didn't.
There's going to be a piano. It's like, how did that happen?
I have no idea what just happened, bro. Oh, man, I love it, though. This story is so over. I'm super intrigued as what your buddy's going to say. I didn't give you pyro. I would have, though. The story's that over with me. For those audio listeners or listeners and wondering what that we're talking about.
I'm like, what the hell is this? The 4th of July? Like,
fireworks just went off on Kon's screen all over the place in his block of the screen, and it was awesome. And I don't know why that happened, but yes, it's over with me. So okay.
So, all right. Yeah. So the gentleman basically said, hey, listen, I could really use your help, and then we'll talk to this gentleman. He didn't tell me who it was specifically.
Oh, okay.
So I went there and I started helping out. You know, he was kind of keeping it a secret because he was just, you know, trying to, you know, make a joke or whatever. I don't know. But Lord and behold, the gentleman came out and my mouth absolutely dropped. And it was Sergeant Slaughter.
Wow.
And
His house?
at his house. So my buddy Don
shit.
Hernandez was doing his landscaping.
Oh, man.
I had no idea. I had no clue. But my mouth literally dropped and I couldn't believe who I was looking at. And so I walked up to him and I go, you're Sergeant Slaughter. Like, I couldn't believe it. Right. And he's just looking at me. You're like, get back to work, kid. Like, you know?
Yeah.
And I go, I loved you in G.I. Joe. Like, you're like my hero. And so it was never because of wrestling that made me love Sarge. It was always G.I. Joe. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if that's kind of what helped him put that, you know, that wall down that wrestlers have. Mm-hmm. Because I didn't acknowledge him for being a professional wrestler. It was, you know, his days of, you know, doing G.I. Joe. And he asked me as we were talking about the XFL and stuff. And he looked at me and he goes, you know, hey, you ever thought about becoming a professional wrestler? And I go, no, never thought about it. I said, but I've always loved wrestling. And he goes, you should think about it. And so he ended up starting my journey off basically. And he kind of got me started with a gentleman by the name of Billy Fives down in South Florida who knew Rusty Brooks. Mm-hmm. And so my transition into independent professional wrestling and training was with Rusty Brooks and Soul Man Alex G down in South Florida. So the whole reason when that moment all clicked and happened was because I was, you know, in Sergeant Slaughter's backyard and he asked me if I ever thought about becoming a professional wrestler. That's how it all started.
That is unbelievable. We've had conversations about this, but what I'm about to say, and I know you believe this, and I am a firm believer in this, and that is that everything happens for a reason. And we are put in a position or a physical place for things to happen for us that I think are meant to happen for us. And I am a firm believer because that's insane. It's not a coincidence. You were meant to have a friend that then was doing yard work that happened to be in the same business that you're working for, and they put you in Sergeant Slaughter's backyard, and then he put that thought in your brain. Like, that was all meant to be to start your journey. That is unbelievable.
Yeah, that's how it happened, man. And even to this day, like anytime if I go to do signings or anything, Cody, and if I find out like Sarge is there, I just bypass everybody and I go straight to Sarge. Yeah. And Sarge is always stopped whoever's in his line. He stands up, he gives me a huge hug, and he always asks me, have you done any landscaping lately? And I just die laughing, you know. And it's really cool because Sarge hasn't forgotten either. And I think that's what makes it so special to me. A childhood hero who lives up to every expectation. He's an amazing human being. And he's never forgotten anything that, you know, he's just been a massive influence in my life and how this whole journey started.
I think that what's really sticking out to me about that is, and I've had this happen to me too, and I've been very blessed in this way, and that I've got to meet some of my heroes, and they've been nothing but so kind to me. I want to bring them up right now. I want to bring up Tatanka because I wrestled on a show with Tatanka in this, you know, this little nothing town, right, on an indie show, and we had a chat. We talked to each other, and then, man, I think it might have been a year later, I go to this other little indie that I'm signing at a table, and Tatanka was on the show, and he wasn't supposed to be. Some cancellation happened, so I didn't know that he was going to be there. So I'm signing autographs, and I look across the room, and I see him kind of come in. He was coming late, and he looks up. He sees me across the room, and I'm signing a T-shirt, and I kind of like give him a nod, and he nods at me. And then I I go to sign something. I look up and he's in front of my table. He walked all the way across the room to come up to me and shake my hand and say hello. And he remembered my name. He remembered where we had met. And then he went back and he did some of his signing. And I remember standing there after Tatanka, who I grew up watching and loving,
Right.
just walked across a room to come shake my hand. One, I felt it kind of just like blew me away. I didn't even know how to respond to this, to have this man do this. I felt so respected. And then I felt also like, what the hell? I should be walking across the room and and shaking that man's hand, not the other way around, because I very much respect my veterans. So as soon as he got to his table, I left my table. I walked across the room and I told him that. I told him how much I appreciated him remembering me and for him coming across the room. And that's not the way it should be. I should be coming across the room to shake his hand because of the amount of respect I had for him. So I shook his hand, gave him a big hug. And we've seen each other a number of times since then. And he's such an awesome dude. And that has stuck with me I know a lot of young wrestlers talk about looking up to guys because of their in-ring skill set. For me, I look up to guys that I've met because of how they conduct themselves as man to man, human to human. Those people stick with me, and Tatanka is one of those guys that has stuck with me. That's how you should treat another human being. And it sounds like Sarge is exactly the same way.
Yeah, and you think about it, right? These are WWE legends, so they've done some pretty amazing things in their career too. So for that kind of respect, and to give it back as well, it just says a lot about those two men specifically who, Tatanka, I've done several things with him too. And he's just he's a really good human being, man. And another father who loves his boys, And so I think that's a really cool thing. It kind of throws you off, right?
Yeah.
Throws you off a little bit because you were like watching them, just not too long ago. And then here you are, you've got a relationship with them.
Yeah.
And it's wild, man.
Yeah. And it also kind of has made me realize too, like, we put these people on a pedestal, and rightfully so. But
Right.
at the end of the day, we're all just dudes. And right, like you just said, he's just a dude. He's a father. I mean, a dude that's happened to have been on WrestleMania, which is a champion. It's crazy, right? Yes, yeah. But like, we're all just dudes trying to. But the key is, I found this is remembering that we're all just dudes and not letting it get to your head. And I know you've seen this, and I've seen this, where the guys that you meet them and then you see them a couple years later and they're not just a dude anymore. They've let that success get to their head. And I've noticed, I guess I'm drawn to the people where they're the same the first time I meet them as the second time I meet them, and the third time. And like guys like a Tatanka, a Sergeant Slaughter, other guys I've met, like a Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, like they are respectful from day one, and then the next time you meet them, and they don't change. And that's something that stuck with me, I think is really important as a life lesson for not just wrestling business, but for anyone that's listening to this, that's in any line of business, or even just as a way to conduct yourself day to day, is don't lose sight of of who you are and what really matters.
Yeah. And it's easy, I think, too, picking up on that, to lose yourself. And it takes a lot of discipline to just try to refrain from that and not be so caught up in those moments to where you start believing in your own shit, respectfully, because at the end of the day, you got to remember that it's just a job. You're looked at on a certain level, but that doesn't mean that you have to be that person when you go off camera, and you can be who you are. And I think that's, to me, you got to find that disconnect. Otherwise, man, you're going to make a lot of enemies in this business, and you're probably going to get fired quite a bit.
I think I've seen this happen to guys that kind of lose themselves, and you hear some of them openly talk about it too. Some of these guys that start to live the gimmick and literally lose themselves in whatever character they might be playing on television, and it messes with them, and then they start making some bad decisions in their real life, off camera, and a lot of it stems from things that they're doing on camera and whatever let them get to their head. Like, have you ever struggled with that? I mean, you're someone who has been on WrestleManias. You've done, like, you've been through the system. You've wrestled and worked for the largest wrestling company in the world and on the planet. Was that something that you had to deal with at all for yourself?
Yeah, honestly, it was.
That's going to do it for another episode of Wrestling is Life is Wrestling. How's that for a cliffhanger for you? Oh, man, I just enjoyed this conversation so much. I appreciate Kon jumping on here, being a part of this project that I call Wrestling is Life is Wrestling, and being open and honest about his career and the things that he's done. And that's a cliffhanger for you, because we're in the middle of him talking about losing yourself in this character, losing yourself in this world of wrestling, which is a very common thing that happens to a lot of people. And I know from a lot of my conversations, including this one that I just cut off on you, that we're going to continue next week in part 2, that Kon has had to struggle with this. And how did he struggle with it? And how did he deal with it? And I know that a lot of the stuff that he shared today, as well as next week in part 2, is needed to be heard by somebody out there. If that is you, head on over to your social media, tag me at Cody Deaner, tag Kon on your Twitter or your Instagram, and let him know what he talked about today and how it maybe affected you in a positive way. Both of us would love to hear from you. Other ways that you can support this project is going to prowrestlingtees.com/Cody Deaner. Go to cameo.com/Cody Deaner. Get a personalized video. Head on over to patreon.com/Cody Deaner. Buy some episodes. You can just buy this episode. If you don't want to be a monthly supporter of this podcast, that's fine. I understand. There's lots of monthly subscription services out there. They're building up and they build up over the year. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I have so many subscriptions. Well, hey, you don't have to do that. That's fine. Why don't you just go on and buy the episode right now with my buddy Kon, and you can listen and watch the entire episode by going over and purchasing it on patreon.com/Cody Deaner. Until then, you can continue to support my sponsor, Rest When Dead Clothing, at restwhendead.ca or at restwhendeadclothing on Instagram. Pick yourself up a t-shirt or a hat today. Every single one of their products is high quality, super wicked awesome. I get compliments. I've been selling these at my merch table at all the events that I'm at, and every single time I get at least one person buys a Rest When Dead shirt. They head on into the bathroom. They put their shirt on. They come out. They're like, Cody, this is the most comfortable shirt that I have ever worn. You said it was high quality, but I didn't understand until I put the shirt on, and I can't even tell that I'm wearing it. It's so comfortable. I've had a number of people say that. It's true. Head on over to restwhendead.ca, support my sponsors, and support this project. Until next week, guys, where we will continue this awesome conversation with my buddy Kon. And when we do, when we continue this conversation, you guys are going to learn yet again, and I'm going to learn along with you, and we're all going to learn together through these stories with my guests. We always learn that wrestling is life, is wrestling. We'll see you next week, guys.
Wrestling is life. Wrestling is life. Wrestling is life, is wrestling.